Hey there, and welcome to This Explainer. Today, we're rolling up our sleeves to tackle a really critical challenge. We are going to look at how we can transform protection from sexual exploitation and abuse, or PSEA, as we usually call it, from, just a dry, check-the-box compliance module into a totally dynamic, everyday leadership discipline. We're going to unpack exactly how to spot weak systems way before any harm actually occurs, and how to take those shiny paper commitments and turn them into visible, concrete management behavior.
Take a look at this quote. The question is not whether a policy exists, but whether people can understand it, trust it, and use it. Honestly, this just hits the nail on the head. It challenges this wildly common and dangerously false assumption that just having a written rule book sitting on a desk somewhere is enough to keep people safe. Spoiler alert, it's not. It's the everyday, boots-on-the-ground management choices that actually build trust. Because believe me, your communities, your partners, and your own staff, they're paying very close attention to whether leadership actually walks the talk.
So, here's our roadmap for today. We're kicking things off with beyond the written policy. Then we'll move into identifying missing voices, navigating real-world scenarios, doing a quick leadership action test, and finally creating your action plan. Let's dive in.
Section 1. Beyond the written policy.
Think for a second about how small, almost invisible choices, maybe pushing a PSEA meeting to next month, or brushing off a casual joke about complaints, how those things silently broadcast what your organization truly values. It's a stark contrast, right? Written standards, like heavy compliance documents or those grand one-time speeches, they just aren't enough on their own. What we absolutely need is everyday behavior. We're talking visible routines, actual funded actions, and documented follow-up. Genuine protection doesn't just happen magically. It requires a clear division of labor and nonstop supervision. When leaders finally make PSEA part of normal, daily business, that's when we bridge the massive gap between what's written on paper and everyday reality.
Moving right along to Section 2, identifying the missing voices.
Okay, we really need to address a critical reality here. Diverse communities and staff experience risk completely differently. A one-size-fits-all approach, that totally ignores real-world access constraints and messy power dynamics. So I want you to ask yourself, whose voice is literally missing from your system? Who might be missing your standard messaging entirely? Who might be terrified to use the standard reporting channels simply because of their gender, their age, their language, or even physical mobility? Like, if your reporting channel is strictly online, think about who you are silently shutting out. Let's bring this down to earth for a minute. Consider Miguel, a finance officer who's strictly focused on questioning operating costs. How does his specific access to information shape how he sees the PSEI system? Or what about Salma? She's a field focal point desperately trying to juggle PSEA part-time on top of her already heavy protection duties. Here's the truth. If our system is perfectly optimized for Chen, the head of agency, but totally fails Salma or Miguel on the front lines, well, the system is broken. We absolutely have to design our processes for the gritty realities of all these different roles.
Section 3. Navigating real-world scenarios.
Picture this. It's a painfully familiar setup, right? An organization appoints focal points, but it's in name only. They have zero dedicated time, zero training, and zero budget. Meanwhile, the field offices are practically begging for actual practical support, not just another endless meeting. And all of this is happening in a high-risk context full of insecurity and massive staff fatigue. This kind of severe operational friction makes implementing standard policies incredibly tough. Leaders in this exact situation have got to step up and make sustainable staffing choices, not just hand out empty paper appointments.
So how in the world should leaders react when concerns bubble up in that kind of chaotic environment? Well, we lean heavily on a very clear 4-step analysis discipline. Step 1. Record the issue. Just get the facts down and separate them from assumptions. Step 2, consult the right focal point or manager. Step 3, and this is absolutely crucial, protect confidentiality rigorously. And Step 4, agree on the next safe step. Now, notice what is conspicuously missing from that list. Conducting informal investigations or engaging in public speculation. We have to make the shift from just passively observing a risk to taking proportionate, safe action without going rogue and launching unauthorized probes.
All right, Section 4, the Leadership Action Test. Let's do a quick knowledge check on what strong leadership actually looks like in practice. Tell me, which of these is stronger evidence of PSEA leadership? Is it a passionate, one-time speech to the team, or is it regular, documented follow-up on risks?
Take a second to really think about the daily value of everyday actions versus those big, sweeping declarations.
If you went with regular, documented follow-up, you absolutely nailed it. True leadership isn't about being a great orator. It's about translating commitments into visible, ongoing business processes. Look, anyone can give a decent speech once a year, but it takes actual, resilient leadership to sit down, review dashboards, fiercely protect confidentiality, and actually fund agreed-upon actions day in and day out. Okay, next question. What would you say is a super common mistake when managing sensitive PSAI information? Think back to that really crucial point about confidentiality we touched on a minute ago.
The answer? A massive and surprisingly common mistake is sharing way more details than necessary, speculating with colleagues, or trying to informally investigate outside of the officially approved procedures. Let me be perfectly clear. This is a fatal error. You've got to remember that providing evidence of progress for management oversight should never, ever, under any circumstances, expose victims, survivors, complainants, or witnesses. Which brings us to our final section, Section 5, Creating Your Action Plan. So it's finally time to document a realistic follow-up plan. The goal here is to fix weak systems right now, before a crisis forces your hand. But first, we kind of need to know what success actually looks like, right? You need tangible evidence that proves your systems are working and properly funded. We're talking about tracking concrete things like training completion rates, making sure reporting channels actually function, and looking at budget execution. Are those partner capacity assessments actually getting done? Do the leadership meeting minutes reflect real, hard decisions being made? Because that right there is practical, respectful evidence of progress. Let's turn all this into an actionable tool. You lay it out like this. Define the priority issue, the exact action you're going to take, who specifically is responsible, the timeline, and the evidence of completion. And hey, I highly encourage you to define a few quick wins here. Maybe it's simply updating a regular meeting agenda to always include PSEA. Pair those quick wins alongside the bigger structural fixes that might need serious budget and senior endorsement. Once you start filling this out, you officially stop just talking about policy and you start executing practice. Now, before we wrap up, I want to leave you with a bit of a provocative challenge. Think about it. Which specific action are you going to take in the next 72 hours? And how will you definitively know that it actually reduced risk, rather than just generating another useless document? Please don't let this explainer just be another compliance exercise you listen to. Make an immediate, specific commitment right now, today, and go implement what you've just absorbed. Thank you so much for focusing your time on this absolutely vital leadership discipline. All right, let's get to work.